Teens, as they've been labeled, they like to do their own thing. So when parents pressure them to join in, participate in the family fun, that's usually when the serious pushback can happen. My next guest has strategies to help avoid that struggle and get your preteen to participate. Family researcher Heather Johnson is here with real-life strategies to get preteens and also teens, we'll throw them into this mix too, to join in, participate, which would make parents happy in the end because we put so much thought and planning into these family activities. And you can speak to this topic firsthand.
Absolutely, that we want everyone there. Right? We want all of our family members there. The hard thing is there is not one single answer that's going to make this easy. It's not even about the activity we've planned or our energy and effort. If we want our kids to want to participate, our preteens and our teenagers, it's about the connection that we continually build with them each and every day.
So you can't pop out of the woodwork suddenly and say, you're coming to this family barbecue and you're going to love it.
You can, but you're going to get some kickback a little bit. And even if they do go without it, it's going to attack the basis of what being a preteen and teenager is, right? Remember, these years are supposed to be an extension away from us. That's what we raised them for 12 years to do. We raised them to be able to make their own decisions, to be able to manage their own time, dress themselves, feed themselves. We want responsible adults to come out of this process. And so that's what they're aiming to do. And when we halt that or don't respect it, that's when we start going head to head with one another.
You say strategy number one, it starts with clear expectations and setting those expectations well in advance.
In advance. So if you have expectations for your teen, which we all do, let them know what's coming long before it hits. If you are a family that believes that siblings should always support sporting events or musical, concerts, things like that, don't the night of say, hey, remember, you need to support your brother tonight. Let them know that that's something your family subscribes to long before they have to do that.
Because Mom, they have an agenda and a social life.
It's exactly right. And so in their mind, they've planned their day, they've planned their night. And when all of a sudden we cut into that, they're thinking, wait, I'm supposed to be mature, I'm making my own decisions, and now you're taking that away from me?
Well, you talk about, wanting the kids, the end result is responsible adults. We want them to grow up, so we should be treating them, you point out, in a grown-up way.
In a grown-up way, which means we have to stop denying that they have feelings and thoughts and want to make these decisions. One of the first things we do as parents is we continue to think that when we have teenagers that we're their managers. The first 12 years we're managers. Then we need to fire ourselves or resign, and now we need to be a consultant. They're very different. Managers look at each and every detail of a situation and govern it, but a consultant is just there to offer advice when it's asked for, and it's on things that they're experts in. So we need to now be consultants. We need to really, instead of denying their feelings, accept them. Our daughter will come home and be so upset about a situation with a friend at school. And I'll be honest, I sometimes, more than often, want to look at her and say, you won't even know this girl's name in 4 years. Like, you're not, this doesn't even matter, right? But those are real feelings to her. This is a really big deal. So treat them like we want to be treated, adhere to those feelings, honor them, and then help them explore them.
I was a teeny bit surprised to hear you suggest while you're making this transition from manager to consultant, withhold the advice.
Withhold the advice.
Don't they need advice, Heather, at this time in their life?
They need advice, but they need to figure it out themselves. They need to think they figured it out themselves. So we're going to stop the lectures. I mean, let's put ourselves in their position. When was the last time someone lectured you? Did you want to be more connected? Did you want to chat with them more after share? We don't. So when we lecture, they immediately shut us out. When we offer advice that they're not asking for, when they're not asking, they feel as though we're dictating or telling them. We need them to come up with those solutions on their own. So we must be more creative and clever with our advice giving instead of just constantly do this, lecture this way, this is what I think you should do. We have to back off.
I love this next piece of advice, to be a late night listener. And I imagine that requires you to snap out of parent mode every now and then.
It does. Now this one's tricky. There's a lot behind this. A couple of things that are important. Sleep-wake patterns for teenagers and adults are very different. As adults, about 7 o'clock, our bodies start releasing chemicals that say, get ready for bed. Our teenagers at about 3 p.m. start getting a second wind, and by 11 at night, they are ready to go. And so the problem with this is we're actually sleeping through the very best time to connect with them. Late night is when they let their guard down. It's when they've processed their day and can communicate with us, and it's when the distractions are gone. So we have to be up late with them so that we can have these conversations. Now, there's some keys to these conversations. The first key is we are not there to talk, we are only there to listen, which means we're not offering advice, we're not making suggestions, we're not questioning.
You're just listening.
Close your mouth and open your, that's it. Simple, really. Wow. That's interesting. That's all you've got, right?
Can you ask questions?
You don't even need to worry about questions.
Okay.
If they're non-invasive questions like, tell me more, that's a great question. I'd love to hear more. Or what happened?
But
Very
not a
simple.
leading question
Right.
that has an objective.
Right, that is like, I want to get you to tell me or confess, or that's not what we're trying to do. A couple other things, we don't want to ever guess when we're listening. We have a tendency to guess with our kids. We'll say things like, well, you've had a bad day. Well, did you fail your math test? Well, did you get in a fight again with your friend? Did you miss the bus?
We start coming to our own conclusions.
Right, and here's what happens when we guess with our children or even with our spouses. All we've done is tell them where we think they're inferior. So our son just heard from me, man, my mom thinks I'm bad at math, I'm never on time, and I'm not a good friend.
Just by one question,
That's
one
what
guess.
he heard. That's not what I said, but that's what he heard, so we don't guess. The other thing with late night listening is we want to make sure that we honor their emotional hangovers. This is what happens. We get them to talk, they feel comfortable, they trust us, they lay it all out, and we get up the next morning and we want to continue the conversation. They don't. They feel vulnerable. They wake up and think, oh, what is mom going to do with all that information I gave her last night?
Almost regret, almost
It's
like, what did I
exactly
say?
right. They just feel so unsafe. So when they get up and head to the kitchen, it's, you want pancakes or oatmeal? Here's your lunch. I'll see you after school at 4. Have a great day. Unless they bring up what you discussed late at night, let it lie until they're ready to discuss it.
I like the phrase emotional hangover. Respect the emotional hangover.
Yes.
We've heard some experts say teens have a what's in it for me attitude. And you say that's not necessarily bad if the parent can get on that same page with them.
Right. We want them, see, being a teenager and a preteen is a very narcissistic, it's a very selfish time of life. And instead of fighting against that, let's embrace it as parents, help them then create their own course. But while they're doing it, we do need them to start seeing that other people exist. And a great way to get on board with what they need is to write down the needs and the wants that your children and that you have in a certain situation. So for example, let's say we've got a family reunion coming up and our son doesn't really want to go. He's not all that excited. I'm going to write down my needs and wants and he's going to do the same. A need for me would be that our entire family attends. That's a need. It's not necessarily, talk about this is what we're going to happen. A want would be that we all show up with a good attitude. That's a want I have, right? I want us all there, and I'd really love it if we could all have a good attitude. Maybe he writes down, I want to reconnect with cousins or see my grandparents, but I need to know that I can still have a connection with my friends at home. That's his need. Now, once we lay that out, the great thing about it is this takes us to our final step, which is being creative in our problem solving. We look at this, and through creativity, I can say, well, wait a second. We can make that need happen. I understand you wanting to keep a connection with your friends at home. So come with us, great. And what if you take an hour every day and you text or Google Chat or call your friends at home to make sure what's going on? Or what if you bring a friend with you? I'll call her, her mom and see if she can come. Or
Smart.
we start to think through. And so then he feels like I've seen him, not through him, not forced him, and we've come to conclusions or solutions on our own. Even better is if I look at him and I say, these are my needs and these are yours. Can you see a solution to this?
And he helps become part of that process.
He becomes part of the solution-driven process, right? If there's anything you can take or learn from being the parent of a teenager or a preteen, it's the need to be creative. We think it's like when they're 2 to 5, but if you want to know when creativity kicks in, it's when they're teenagers. We have to somehow impart advice and wisdom and then let them think that it was all their own idea. And if that doesn't take creativity, I don't know what does,
That's
right?
the definition. Super smart strategies,
Yeah.
Heather. You'll be on speed dial in about 13 years from me, right?
We'll see.
I'm serious. Thank you so much. Really helpful. We'll repost this conversation for you on our website if you found it helpful, maybe to share with a spouse or with a preteen, a family member.